We are live. Fantastic. So hello everyone and welcome to Stately's third office hours. We're really glad that you've joined us. In case you haven't been here before, we're doing a weekly office hours every Friday around this time. It's technically 9 a.m. Eastern time. Actually, it's currently 2 p.m. here in Ireland. And sorry, I just had to mute myself in another tab as I was hearing myself talking back to me. Right. The aim for this is to share all the cool stuff that we're working on for XState and also answer any questions that you might have. If you have any questions, you can ask them on YouTube itself. We get the comments coming through on here. You could also tweet us using hashtag #StatelyOfficeHours. And you can also join in on the Office Hours channel on our Discord. And if you're not already on the Discord, you can join using that URL there. I'm sorry, it's going to flash up really quickly and disappear really quickly as well. Those aren't clickable links. I'm sorry about that. And I'll be watching out for your questions during the stream. And today we're really, really excited because we're going to get to give you a demo of the new visualizer, which will be released very, very soon. And before we get to that, I would like to properly introduce you to three of the fabulous developers behind XState. You say three? There's only three people on screen, but actually I am just going to add Farzad in as well. And let's start with Matt. Matt, tell us, how did you get involved with XState?
Hello, I got involved about a year ago. Discovered XState and started using it in my company, and now very excited to be part of Stately.
Fantastic. And how about you, Farzad?
Hey, I'm Farzad. Well, I got into XState almost 3 years ago when David was talking about it in conferences, and then I heard about the concept and I got into it, and it felt like one of those aha moments that why are we using it everywhere, something like that. So I got there, then I gave a bunch of conference talks about it, and then I got into the curse somehow.
And how about you, Masiush, also known as Andorist?
So I have probably watched some video on YouTube from David, and I just fell in love with the idea behind it. So I have started contributing because that's what I usually do when I start enjoying projects. And yeah, that was over 3 years ago. So
fabulous. Well, unfortunately, we haven't got David with us today, but I think you'll agree that we have more than enough great people to answer your questions. And why not? Let's get straight into the part that everyone has been waiting for. Matt, how about let's start with showing them the current visualizer. I will show your screen for you. There we go.
Sounds good. Yeah, this is what the current visualizer looks like at the moment. And it's pretty good. You know, you can click through events and things, and you can sort of see what your machine is like as you're building it. But it's not really that. It's got some things that we wish we could improve, you know. So we've got, you know, on the right-hand side, you've got to type in this thing over here. When you update, it doesn't prettify anything. You can't use TypeScript in here, and it's not even running like the main version of XState. And it's got all these sort of magical imports and things which we just don't like. And so we thought, why not rewrite the thing from the ground up? Here is how it looks in the new visualizer. We've got a fetch machine here in exactly the same way. You can click around, do all the stuff you're used to. You can click and drag and move it about, zoom in and out from the canvas here, and it's just beautiful. Zoom in and out from here, reset the machine up here, all sorts of fun controls. And crucially, we have a fully TypeScript-enabled Monaco editor on the right-hand side. This is the editor that they use in VS Code. And Mateusz especially has done a lot of work with this. We have autocomplete inside here. You can get proper TypeScript errors as you're saying, whoops, grab that from the correct place. And we get prettier too. So if I added a bunch of things here and I visualize, boom, well, that should be prettifying. There it goes. And We also get keyboard shortcuts too. So you can go Command Return to just visualize your new machine. For instance, if I add a new state here, go wow up in here, then we have this new wow state. If I go on something, target the wow, or you see I'm getting proper type errors because I forgot to put it on the on. That's kind of typical. Target, let's see, idle. Then we get this new setup here. So what can we show you from here? If you error, for instance, then we catch the errors beautifully and show it to you. The old visualizer had this issue where it would sometimes just white screen. And so you get this lovely invalid transition definition, all that stuff. And we get to get it working from there. We can properly specify context and event type up here. For instance, context, it says object is of type unknown. That doesn't stop you from viewing it in the visualizer. We don't actually use the types to kind of bar you from seeing your code. What we do is we just use it to ensure that you can get proper type accuracy here. So context retries, let's make it retries, which is a number. And then finally, this error goes away. You can also do event typing, all the stuff you're used to. You can use create model in here. Everything works as you would expect in your IDE. And that means it's a lot easier to copy over stuff that was in your IDE to the visualizer and back and forth. So now let's actually save this machine, because the way this used to work is you would save it to a gist. But now it says, I just saved by pressing Command S just here. And we go sign into Stately Registry to be able to save and fork machines. Okay, let's sign in with GitHub. So we sign in with GitHub, and then I'm in. And now what we can do is we can save here. And let's choose a name for this new machine. Let's call it Fetch Machine. Now this Fetch Machine, we've got a new file saved successfully. This now lives on the cloud in Stately Registry. And the registry sort of looks like this. In fact, before we go there, I just want to show you one more cool thing, which is this is our kind of default VS Code theme that we have here. And you can change it. So you can go into settings and change it to, let's say, Night Owl. And suddenly you've got a Night Owl thing. This is just something kind of cute that we wanted to add. Garden of Atlantis. Oh, we're so happy that we get to add all these cool features as well as the necessary ones. So you save the machine, and let's just click on my face up there and view my machines. So we go to my machines, and this is the Stately Registry. You can see here are all the machines that I've created. So let's see, the Fetch machine is my newest one. I'm just going to edit it here and give it some keywords. So I'm going to say fetch, call it the utility machine, and we submit. And then we see our Fetch machine is here. Crucially, too, we can like it. Why not? Give it a like. And these likes populate across the Stately Registry. So you can search for popular machines that other people have built. For instance, if I see this guy called, what's this guy David doing here? Maybe I'll like his machine. And let's actually click on it and view it. So we can see that this is David's cool machine here. You can see how well it handles complex machines and visualizations and things. We can edit his machine too. So we can just go in here and add a new state. Wow. Visualize it there. And crucially, we can fork a machine. So this is just like Code Sandbox, where we fork and visualize the test model forked, submit it. And now when we view it in our own list, we can see that we have visualizer test model forked. All of these machines, you can just drop them into other people's, let's see, these are shareable links too. So all you've got to do in order to get visualizer test model forked here is I'm just going to grab the URL from up here, go into incognito window, and I can view the new visualized machine. So beautiful. So this is not everything though. We've got one extra thing to show you, which is this is not only a visualizer, it's also an inspector. On Xstate Catalog, we use currently Xstate Inspect. And by default, this points you at a URL called statecharts.io, but you can point it to the new viz. So this is a demo sort of version that I've got running here. And if I look at one of the machines that we've got built out here, this is in inspect mode. This is just looking at the machine here And whether you're in Visualizer or in spec mode, you can actually look inside the state. So the context, etc. You can look at all the events. You can even send events too. So let's say we have send, submit, and send that. Let's go back to Xstate Viz, I think. And then send another event. Go. And this gets sent to the machine rather beautifully too. So for some reason that's not changing. I think that's to do with this particular machine and the con that's associated with it. But this is where the Xstate Viz, as it currently stands, this is how it's operating. We're incredibly excited for you to get using this and get building with it. I noticed that while I was building it, just towards like the end of the sprint or end of the couple of week cycle, I was building things in VS Code and I thought, oh no, I can actually just use the visualizer, can't I? Yeah, let's just use that. And it had become so much better than the VS Code experience. Just being able to build all this out has been really incredible. And I think we're ready to take some questions about it.
Oh, fantastic. If anyone does have any questions, as a reminder, you can ask in the YouTube comments. You can ask using the hashtag of Stately Office Hours on Twitter, or you can ask in our Office Hours channel on Discord. Now, I know that Farzad got in there quickly and answered this question already, but I think it would be good if we get this question answered on the stream itself. This is from Aris. Is the registry private or public by default?
Farzad, why don't you take that one?
Actually, I think since you work mainly in the registry, you can take this one better than me.
Ah, cool. Yeah, it is public by default. So we don't have the functionality yet for you to make it private. This may end up being like we do quite like the ability to just share these links all around and that kind of thing. But it may end up being a sort of another feature where you can just share it with your team, for instance, or share it with a select group of people. But for now, everything's public by default.
Right, and I think this is possibly the ultimate question from Marcel. When can we use it?
That's a question for David, I think, but he's not here, sadly. It's kind of, I think whenever it's finished, really. We have a couple of other things that we want to add. And yeah, I don't know, really. In the next couple of weeks, it should be.
It's good. There's a lot of enthusiasm in the comments for it. So I think people are going to really enjoy the fruits of your hard work. This next question from Ricardo, someone's going to have to explain the acronym to me. It's nice that it works better than VSC. Why not embedding it in VSC, though, with an extension? VS Code. I got it now. So why not?
Farzad?
Yeah, sure. So we've been thinking about embedding the entire visualizer and inspector into the VS Code from the beginning when we're designing the architecture behind it. I think the architecture that we chose for this is basically working in a way that with very slight changes, we can embed that in a VS Code plugin and then get it working. It's almost like a VS Code plugin, but it's just working in the window frame. We just have to technically get it working in VS Code frame, and voila. We're very close to that. So I think right after releasing the MVP or the initial version of the new Visualizer Inspector, we're going to focus on getting the extension working.
Yeah, people have been asking for it so much as well. Like, and it's such an obvious next step for this. You know, we've got the Monaco editor working in line, so why not just have the VS Code be your Monaco editor and then build it out from there and see the code as you're writing it.
Fantastic. We've got some questions that we had earlier from our Discord. So Fox asks, I'm sure people have brought this up, but will Xstate Visualizer support child machines / spawning actors?
Mateusz, you want to talk about the challenges on that one?
So definitely there is a plan for that, and you can already list child machines. I'm not sure, but I think that we don't yet actually visualize them on the canvas, but that should be doable. But we need to figure out the best UI and UX for that as well, to visualize how things are interconnected between each other and stuff like that. But definitely doable and definitely on our minds.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but we already visualized the actors. Like basically anything that's invoked, we just
Okay.
visualize them one by one. Not
Yeah.
like
You need to switch between them, right? I was thinking more about like laying the whole thing on a single canvas. But yeah, you can already inspect them, but you need to switch around. So
right. I think, Matt, it would be very beneficial if you could just like quickly demo how actors work and how you can switch between them.
Yeah, Laura, if you share my screen again.
I will share it. There you go.
Thank you. We have this list of actors that are in play here. So we have on the right-hand side, we have the visualizer test model. I have a feeling that there's a bug in place that if I create a second machine or if I spawn another one, then it's not actually going to show in there. So create machine, initial idle, states idle. Then if I save this, yeah, we are just getting the first machine that was spawned. But there's absolutely no reason why we can't have them interacting because we have access to all of the machines that are being spawned and interpreted. We just need to show them all in the actor panel and kind of, and eventually show them all on one big explorable map. I think that would be really, really exciting. But as Mateusz said, there's lots of challenges involved with that.
Fantastic. So Ricardo asks, what about having the inspector as a browser extension? Not a huge fan of the auto opening of the current inspector in a new tab at each refresh that we have now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of answer that we gave to the previous question, which is now that it's now that we have a kind of inspector and a visualizer combo that we can be proud of, then we can embed it, in almost anywhere. It's just to create React app. And because we're using the actor model to kind of coordinate between the extension and your code anyway, then putting that in a browser extension is going to be fairly trivial, I think. Fazad, you got any other thoughts on that?
No, I think we're kind of like using our own DevTools under the hood. And these DevTools can either work locally or over the wire. So it doesn't really matter as long as there is a message passing connection between the sources and the visualizer. So I think you can literally embed the new visualizer inspector anywhere.
Okay.
That's fantastic. And
just one upside to that could be also, sorry for interrupting, Laura, that maybe there's also potentials in mocking the DevTools and have it working or the communication between them in the test environment. But let's see. We might maneuver on that later on. Yeah.
Are there any features that any of you we haven't got right now, but you're looking forward to adding in the future?
Mateusz, you want to grab that?
Any wish list items?
I thought that was a question to the audience.
To the audience as well, of course. If anyone does have any wishes items, let us know because we would love to know. But I'm also interested because we're all people that are like excited to actually use these tools ourselves. So are there things that you've been working on that you're really excited to be able to use?
Like for me, definitely embedding that into the VS Code would be very exciting because that's my kind of natural environment of work. So that's pretty exciting for me, and definitely something that I would like to tackle sooner than later, because it could just boost my productivity. Yeah,
I'm really excited about the idea of being able to actually see your own source code in this as well, and being able to maybe inspect files that are actually native in your project and inspect them out from there. There are lots of challenges involved with that, like how do we ignore like all the dependencies that you're pulling in and that kind of thing. If you're running arbitrary code, how do we not run that? Having some kind of XState CLI that could pull out all the machines and update the entries in the registry. I think the registry in particular is very, very exciting. And having possibly in the future, a public facing API that you could use to interact with your machines and search for machines, like there's just so much power in that idea.
Yeah. A relevant question here from Horatio asking, where's the machine for the new visualizer?
Well, you'll see it actually, because this code is going to be open sourced. So the XState Viz, all of this stuff, you don't have to pay a license for this. There's no just to use the visualizer or to sign up to State Your Registry, you do not have to pay. It's just free to sign up with GitHub, and you'll be able to have a look at the code and peek around in it.
So that you've very smartly answered Jan's question about will the visualizer be open source, and Angel Nunez's question of will I have to pay for a license to use it?
It's going to be open source, and we're kind of proud of what we built and the source code, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a messy code. So sorry for that.
Well, nothing's perfect, and certainly not at the beginning either.
Exactly.
Here's I guess more of a comment from Aris saying, I'd wish to have autocomplete for states, actions, guards, and other things that you can reference by name and error when an invalid name has been entered. How's that for a feature?
Yeah, pretty killer. It feels like that's the domain of a VS Code extension, because this is something that I've been kind of tooling around with a VS Code extension kind of in my spare time. And that's something that sort of works there already. There have also been lots of experiments with this in terms of TypeScript too, which Mateusz is probably pretty qualified to comment on. Mateusz, you're sort of leading the TypeScript effort in Stately for improving XState types.
So there are different angles that we can take, and we are still evaluating them basically because that's not the easiest endeavor. Basically, we have very strict contracts between like states, guards, and stuff like that. But even if that contract is very strict, it's hard to validate that in TypeScript alone. So we are kind of exploring different approaches. We are also observing efforts of Devan, who is basically TypeScript magician, and who is implementing a lot of this stuff in his project called TXState. So you can poke around in that repository to see how it works. And it already has proven to be working for a lot of cases, but it's also experimental at this point, so we are not sure if we are going to follow with it. But yeah, we definitely want to provide the best TypeScript experience that we can. So this is very much on our minds, and we are just evaluating our options, and we'll have to eventually settle on something and do it.
Yeah, totally. We have a question finally from the Discord. People are getting involved on there as well. Mike C says, can you import an actor machine from the registry?
Farzad, do you want to take that?
I would want to say yes, but I don't want to make any empty promises. But I would say that's definitely the plan. Like we want the registry to act as the main source of truth for all sorts of machines, and we want that to be the first class citizen in the visualizer or the editor or the other tooling that we're planning right now. So definitely going to be planned. We're just not sure about the implementation or the intuitiveness of the API yet.
Yeah, there's so much scope for integrating with GitHub, integrating with pull requests, perhaps even changing a machine on the registry could open a pull request into your GitHub repository or something like that. There is so much potential for cross-pollination when you think of how easy GitHub is to integrate with. We want the registry to be as easy to integrate with too, and so we can talk to all these different setups and do all sorts of crazy things that we never thought possible.
Well, and that's the thing, is that everyone's having ideas constantly about what we can do, and like just in the team alone coming up with new ideas and features to add all the time, and that's before we even get any feedback from all of the rest of you lot. And that's why it's really great hearing like suggestions and ideas and how people would want to use it in their own work, because we can integrate these ideas into what's being built. Now, Marcel asks another question. I like that it's open source, but how do you earn money? And I think that David actually covered this briefly in last week's office hours, that like obviously these three wonderful people were already working on XState to some degree in their spare time. But now as Stately, we are now working paid for Stately, and that's because Stately has some funding to get us to a position where we can make some money from paid features, additional features on top of what's open source. And that is sort of a long way in the future right now. There are various plans for it, but that is sort of the rough aim for what's going on here.
Yep, officially that's David's problem. We don't have to care about it really too much. All our job is to improve the open source and make as good a product as possible, basically. And you know, if we make a good thing here, then and you guys use it, then there's going to be a way to monetize it. But yeah, all we want to do and all that we're committed to is building cool stuff, basically, which is quite a nice position to be in.
That's how you got involved in the first place, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I haven't had the time to post this one over into a banner yet, but there's a question on Discord from Avan, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The visualizer, is it framework agnostic?
Absolutely, yes. The only thing that the visualizer needs for visualizing your machines is the configuration or the definition, just like the old visualizer. And the inspector part. I think I got
Great. Yes,
you're back.
Somehow ended up being muted. You're back now. So you were saying that it is framework agnostic just as it is now, the new visualizer is.
I'll speak for Farzad, yeah, it is. And the only thing we need in order to inspect is just a single function call to XState inspect. There's no framework in it whatsoever.
Great. Now I muted myself. So from Aris again, I guess providing types up front for actions, guards, and others could enable auto-completion and errors, just like with context and states.
Mateusz, you want to grab us one?
To some extent, definitely yes, but we still wouldn't be able to narrow down types for everything that we'd like to automatically. But yeah, definitely, if you declare stuff up front, then it gets much easier to hint at various places. So that's one of the areas that we are exploring and one of the approaches.
Yeah, this is something that's been interesting with Create Model too, which is some syntax that David and Mateusz have been experimenting with, and we've actually been using to build the visualizer too. I think that has a lot of potential for for doing what you're describing, Aris, which is sort of declaring the actions and events and that sort of network up front, and then consuming that from the machine, which has potential.
As Horatio says, I think one area interesting to explore is error handling while creating state machines. I had some issues building one that I needed to go to the old visualizer to find the actual error. Any advice?
Farzad, do you want to take this? There's quite a lot of errors that we handle.
Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I think we're doing our best in the new visualizer to catch as many exceptions as possible. But there are cases that we might need like the runtime, like the ASC parser or the linter later on, integrating into the visualizer to be able to catch all sorts of exceptions. It's really hard to judge it like without having to look into your code. But I would say the new visualizer is the best tooling right now that you can have for the error handling, or just basically logging in your local environment, I guess. But give it a shot. I mean, we might have a chance to improve it if you have more feedback from your side.
And Asim asks, you guys did mention that you're planning for getting XState into backend. My question is, at the current state, can I just replace the AWS step machine with XState? as a Saga execution coordinator? I don't know what that is.
Currently, no. I mean, one thing that we're intrigued about is the idea that you could use XState as basically as a replacement for step functions. Where if you think of, let's say, a service where you invoke a service, let's imagine that you have like one Lambda that's sort of coordinating everything, and then you ping off a message to another Lambda, and then it pings you back a message. That is an invoked service in XState. And if you imagine that you use something like you describe how you want your infrastructure to behave inside a state machine, when you could take that state machine and basically deploy it to the cloud. So any actions that you describe, they would be individually put into their own Lambdas. Actions are kind of like fire and forget, which matches a kind of an invoke to a Lambda that you don't care about the response. And there's so much potential there for because that's what AWS step functions are, really. They're just state machines. And if we could do both there, we could describe the behavior and describe the infrastructure in a single machine, which is tremendously exciting, but also some way down the line.
Great. Well, now I have a better idea of what it is as well.
Okay.
So thank you for that, Matt. Does anyone have any more questions? I am now running low on questions. We're having lots of really great, happy feedback and lots of people very enthusiastic about what we're doing. Just as a reminder, you can ask a question on YouTube here. You can do in Discord in our Office Hours channel, or using the hashtag #StatelyOfficeHours on Twitter. I do actually have another question that we were asked before the stream, and this is slightly off topic, but I still think it's an interesting thing to discuss. And this is Jan, who asked on Discord, I'm planning to do an intro to state charts /XState workshop at my company. And seeing as you folks probably have done your fair share of those kind of things, I'd love if you could share some of your experiences with what works and what doesn't in terms of format, content, etc. And this is something we've obviously been discussing a lot recently, because we're all trying to look at ways to better explain what we're doing at XState and better explain the concept. So it'd be a great opportunity to get your thoughts on that, the rest of you.
Farzad, do you want to take this?
Yeah, there's definitely there are a lot of things that you can mention in a talk, but my advice would be don't rush into it, because it's a wide concept and there's a lot of things to talk about, and people are going to feel overwhelmed pretty fast. One of my mistakes was that I tried to squeeze all the sequence of these concepts in half an hour, getting from like the basics of transitions, events, and states to actor model, and like people they didn't have any ideas at the end of the talk how to reach out and how to get started with the state charts as a concept. So definitely break it down into actionable next step for your audience, and talk about state machines first, then get into state charts and their benefits, then try to go practical with a few examples that are tangible for a team and the audience, and then after that get into actor model or more advanced sort of or practical use cases of it in your own company.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all boxes and arrows, basically. I'm stealing a phrase from Mateusz. It's all boxes and arrows. It's just states and things that lead to other states. It's, what happens when you enter a state? Are there any long-running processes inside that state? And boxes invoking other boxes, But at the root of it, it is just boxes and arrows, So if we can, I think some of this is kind of on us as well to provide, and on the community to provide better interactive documentation that really focuses on the visual elements. A lot of our docs at the moment are quite academic and quite sort of to do with reference, and they don't really interactively lead you through the kind of the process of learning this stuff. Because when you do take the time and sort of sit down and sift through the docs and understand the concepts, then they really, they embed at an incredibly deep level, and you really do start seeing everything, even when you're not using XState, as a state machine. Like all I see are state machines now, and everywhere I go. Mateusz, does that sound similar to your experiences?
Yeah, I believe it is. Like one of the biggest takeaways that I have been always trying to present when talking about XState to new people was not really XState as the library and as the API that it provides, but more about the concept it represents. So yeah, definitely, I think that that this can kind of be a more gentle introduction to XState, because like I feel like ultimately what you write is kind of a secondary concern, especially that it's not totally different from what we are thinking about, because there's when it comes to XState, there is this one-to-one mapping sort of between that visualizable diagram and the code, right? Because you declare the whole state machine config in JSON, which basically describes the diagram. So it's better to it's better to sell people on thinking about visualization and on modeling, basically, and on thinking about like race conditions, error handling, all of this stuff. Like if you start visualizing that, it just becomes much more obvious that those issues might exist in your code, and that you need to design a proper paths in the state machine for them. And without state machines, there is just nothing guarding you against like ad hoc solutions and ad hoc logic running at times that the code was not designed for, really. And so that's really the main benefit for me of XState, like thinking about the stuff, modeling, and even if somebody doesn't want to buy into XState, if they after a talk, after some educational material, start to think about this kind of stuff and even starts to draw on the whiteboard, on a paper, that's already a win.
Yeah, it's got so much potential as a communication and collaboration tool in that way, and you don't even really have to have a huge amount of familiarity with code to get your head around it.
Yeah, maybe one other thing that I can add to this discussion is to summarize what other folks have said, like just don't sell XState as a solution, but sell the state charts and state machines as a concept, because the entire mindset on translating, thinking about like the data and the data structure into defining the states, that's going to take a lot of time, and be patient with the audience and the team. Another thing would be like one of the very good ways of introducing this to your team would be to come up with very practical examples by bringing the complexity, the hidden complexity of your current code into the surface, because there is a lot of complexity hidden behind your source code that your team probably doesn't see right now. Just bring that into the surface, make it visible, and they will already be sold on the state chart and state machine idea.
That's good advice. Back to questions about the visualizer itself. Ricardo asks, will there be an easy way to extend a machine coming from the registry or other sources?
This is interesting because Farzad actually was talking about this in one of our private chats the other day. You can take this. I can see you're champing at the bit.
Yeah, it's funny because we were literally talking about it yesterday. We have some ideas for such an API to be able to build pluggable or composable state charts without having to, extend them on the interpreter level. To be able to add functionalities, restructure the state structure in a machine, or be able to augment that, kind of like a plugin, but much more than that. We have some ideas about that, but right now what you can do is to basically pull in the machines and fork it and start changing that on your own.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges with this, not only at the registry level, but also just at the API level, at the code API level. I mean, it's an interesting problem because you have a state machine that's a kind of unit of logic. What are the handles that you expose to allow it to be changed? What do you allow to be changed? Like, we've been thinking a lot about kind of other integrations that we could provide with XState out of the box, like XState router or XState form, and those kind of extensible APIs would also be really useful there too. So I think we're kind of open to ideas from the community about this too, about what those APIs would look like and how they might work.
Totally. Greg asks, hello all, during this new development, any additional look/planning around integration into durable functions a little more cleanly?
We didn't have a use for them in this cycle. I think we do need to tell a better story when it comes to using XState on the back end in general, because durable functions, for those who don't know, are a kind of persistent objects that are hosted in the cloud, basically. Is it durable functions or durable objects that I'm thinking of? I don't know. Maybe they mean I'm going to treat it as durable objects because that's the durable I know about. And this is a really good use for state charts too, because you could imagine you have a state machine just sat in the cloud that represents, let's say, your user, and you can just ping it an event to say, okay, disable this user or rename them or something like that. The state machine processes and it returns its new state, and then it just sits there in the cloud. You don't need to model it in any kind of way, and it's JavaScript too. I know that David has an example repository for using durable objects with XState, which you can check out. I'm not sure where that is, but if you ping me in the Discord, then I can send it to you. And yeah, it's definitely an API and a use case that we're really excited about. It's just, I think it's got to mature, and XState has to mature a little bit as well in terms of the story that we tell about the backend.
Great. Well, I think we are getting to the point. We've had so many fantastic questions, but one of the things that we have, the team working on XState, is we don't like to make meetings any longer than they need to be. And so if we don't have any more questions in particular, I would like to, it wouldn't be an office hours if I didn't yet again ask you all, please, could you fill out our survey? I'm just going to leave this very long, short URL up on the screen for a little longer. We'll tweet it out and we'll post it on Discord after this live stream as well. We've had so many fantastic and useful answers already that we really are taking on board your suggestions and the things that you'd like to be able to do with XState. It really is really useful to us. So it's the best way to make yourself heard is to respond to this survey, and there's also an option if you want to get some cool stickers as well. So please do go along and fill it out for us. And what else? Well, I think unless anybody else has anything that they want to mention about the visualizer today, no, right, good. Then I think that's a good point to say that's it for today's office hours. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all again, same time next week. Have lots of questions ready for us then, please. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.